Hello friends, it's Wild Willie, your personal guide to outdoor adventure. And today we're going to bring our outdoor adventure indoors. We're coming indoors to talk about Christmas. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but Christmas was invented right here in southwest Missouri back about 1,100 years ago or so, give or take. They decided that they wanted a way to control the children. So they told them that if they weren't being good, that they wouldn't get any presents, and so it was a way to keep them behaving nicely all year long, because they didn't want to get on the naughty list. But as you probably know, Christmas is actually about the celebration of the birth of Jesus, and in our day and time, a lot of myths and folklore and traditions have kind of taken the place of the reality of Christmas. So what I've done is I've pulled up an old book, and I've studied this book, and this is a Bible, and you may not know this, but the Bible was invented right here in southwest Missouri. They needed a way to give the people some good instructions, so they invented the Bible and wrote it and gave it to the people to behave themselves. But anyway, I took this Bible and I studied all the way through it, and I have come up with the real story about Christmas. We've gotten rid of some of the misconceptions and the wrong traditions that surround this wonderful celebration. So let me just read to you from this book what I came up with. Many years ago, a prophet named Isaiah told everyone that a king would be born one day and he would be a lamb. Well, all the people thought he was crazy, so they sent him to live in the Garden of Eden. While he was there, he met a couple named Adam and Eve. They all lived together in the garden, but Adam and Eve didn't have any clothes, so Isaiah decided that he would preach naked as well. Isaiah did not like doing this because everyone already thought he was crazy, so he went to the mall and bought a sewing machine. He brought it back and sewed fig leaves together to make everyone some clothes. Adam and Eve were so happy to have new clothes that they showed him where they had kept the forbidden fruit. Isaiah took one look at the tree and said, "Don't eat that fruit or a great flood will cover the earth." But Eve did not listen to him, and she got her friend the snake, and they ate Adam out of house and home. Just as Isaiah had said, it started to rain for the first time ever. It rained for 2 whole chapters in the Bible, and everyone drowned except Isaiah's cousin's uncle's next-door neighbor, Noah. Noah built an arch in St. Louis, Missouri, and he, his wife, and 2 of all the animals on the earth went to the top of the arch so they wouldn't drown. They lived off of ham sham, which was served by their butler Japheth, and Isaiah stayed with them during this time. The arch smelled so bad that Isaiah left and traveled to Sodom and Gomorrah. He stayed with a man named Lot, who was a salt farmer. Lot married one of the pillars of salt, which raised his blood pressure so high that Isaiah called down fire from heaven and burned up everything around, including Sodom and Gomorrah. Next, Isaiah went to Egypt, where he met a man in a basket whose name was Moses. Isaiah told Moses about the lamb that was going to be a king. Moses was so happy to hear this news that he had all the children of Israel take a lamb and put it over the door of their homes. When the Egyptians saw what the Israelites had done, they started to laugh. They laughed so hard that frogs shot out of their noses and killed all of the firstborn male children. Pharaoh was so mad he evicted the children of Israel from their homes and made them leave Egypt. They walked through the Red Sea on a new highway that God had built for them and ate banana bread in the wilderness 40 times. When they got to the Promised Land, Isaiah said he could no longer stay around. He had to go find this lamb that was going to be the king. On the way, Isaiah met a small boy named David, who was playing with a slingshot. Isaiah thought it looked like fun, so he asked if he could have a turn shooting it. David said he could and ran out and got 5 smooth stones. Isaiah took one of the stones and shot it out the window. It hit a giant named Goliath in the forehead and killed him. Isaiah was so scared that he blamed David for the giant's death. No one in the town liked the giant, so they made David their king. Isaiah left the area while David played a harp, danced, and wrote psalms. Sometimes later, Isaiah met David's son Solomon, who was the smartest person in the whole world. He said many smart things called proverbs. Solomon was quite the ladies' man, so he married 700 women and they planted 300 cucumber vines. This was all too much for Isaiah to handle, as the wives were constantly complaining about Solomon working too much and not having a nice enough chariot or a nice enough house. So Isaiah left and traveled on down the road. Isaiah saw a prophet named Elijah and his young son Elisha. They were walking down the road and talked with Isaiah for a while. Suddenly, a chariot that was on fire came by, and a whirlwind blew Elijah into the chariot, and he went to heaven. Elisha tore off his clothes and cried in the middle of the road, so Isaiah just walked away, since this was all too weird. When Elisha's mother Jezebel heard what had happened, she got very angry. She had Isaiah brought to the city to see her put on makeup and fix her hair. After she was done, Isaiah had her thrown out a window and she died. Later they went to pick up the pieces of her body, and they collected 12 baskets full, which they used to feed the dogs. Isaiah was tired of all this nonsense, so he left the city and traveled to the land of Uz. While there, he met a man named Job, who was very depressed because his friends were making fun of him and bullying him on social media. Job sat in an ash pile and was very sad for a long time. One day he got rich by raising livestock and was finally happy. Isaiah moved on since everything finally worked out. Isaiah traveled back home where his next-door neighbor Jeremiah was crying. Jeremiah cried so much that Isaiah could not stand it. Isaiah told him to write down all the things which made him sad, so Jeremiah wrote a long letter to his family, which they called Lamentations. They later had it published by Zondervan Publishing House, and it was on the New York Times bestseller list for 13 years. While traveling through a valley of old bones, Isaiah saw a prophet named Ezekiel, who made the bones get up and stand at attention. This kind of freaked Isaiah out a little bit, so he told Ezekiel that he had to go find the lamb that was going to be king. Ezekiel began to prophesy, and Isaiah went on his way to find the lamb. Next, Isaiah met a young lion tamer named Daniel, who worked at the Babylonian circus. He had 3 friends named Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were fire eaters at the same circus. They invited Isaiah to see their act, so they all went and got front row seats. Isaiah only stayed for one performance because he needed to go find the lamb that was going to be king. While he was traveling and leaving the circus, he met a man named Hosea. Hosea was married to a loose woman named Gomer. When she saw Isaiah, she yelled, "Shazam!" Isaiah just walked away because he did not want to get involved in their lives. For the next several days, Isaiah traveled to a town called Bethlehem. Along the way, he met a singing group called the Minor Prophets. Since they all sang in a minor key, he did not like listening to them, so he did not stay to hear them sing. Finally, on Christmas Eve, he arrived in Bethlehem and got a room at the Holiday Inn. It was called the Holiday Inn because it was the holidays. Isaiah got the last room available. After he had unpacked his fig leaves and sat down to watch some TV, there was a loud knock on the door. When he opened the door, he found a man named Joseph and his pregnant wife, Mary. They asked if he would mind giving up his room, as it was the last one and it was very cold outside. Isaiah said he had already unpacked and it would be too big of a hassle to move at this time. Joseph said it was okay, they would just sleep in the barn, which people did a lot in those days. Later that night, right after midnight, Isaiah was awakened by a lot of screaming and crying coming from the barn. He went out to see what was going on and found that Mary had given birth to a very hairy baby. The baby's grandpa Isaac was blind and he wanted to feel the baby. Isaiah felt the baby's neck and hands and said he feels like a lamb because he is so hairy. At once, Isaiah remembered this prophecy that a lamb was going to be king. Suddenly, a large flock of angels began to sing, "Away in a Manger." And some shepherds came in to see what all the commotion was about. While Mary and Joseph were telling what had happened, 3 wise men came in from the east with some Christmas presents. They said they had been following a star and it had led them to this stable. Suddenly the little baby Jesus began to glow, and they all gathered around the manger to pose for a picture they later called the nativity scene. Isaiah got out his Polaroid and took a group photo. One of the wise men said, "What shall we call this holiday?" All of the shepherds yelled, "Christmas!" Everyone liked that idea, so they decided to have a business meeting to determine how they would celebrate this monumental occasion. They decided that there would be a Christmas tree with lots of presents under it. A huge meal would be served, which would make everyone feel miserable afterwards, and there would be lots of candy. They were so happy that they had decided on what they had decided, they began to sing "Joy to the World." One of the shepherds made a motion that the business meeting should be adjourned, which was seconded by 2 of the wise men. The motion carried, so they closed in prayer and all went home and left Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus alone. Several years later, Isaiah heard that Joseph had died and left Mary alone to finish raising Jesus. When Jesus was full grown, he became a traveling preacher, but no one liked him very well, so they had him killed. This left Mary all alone, and Isaiah could not help but wonder, whose wife will she be in the resurrection? Now, I hope that this little story that I have written for you will help clear up some of the misconceptions about Christmas. So I just want to say, from myself and Crazy Cora and Stupid Jeffrey, who's laying at my feet asleep like an old dog, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.